My name is Daniel Keller, and I was the systems engineer aboard the NSS Vector, the last submersible to descend into the Atlantis Trench. If you've never heard of it, that's not surprising. The trench was discovered only 18 months ago, about 200 miles west of the Mariana Trench, in what was previously thought to be a tectonically stable zone. There was no fanfare, no media buzz, no scientific articles, only a series of encrypted communications sent through NOAA and its military-aligned contractors. I shouldn't be writing this. There were 6 of us aboard the Vector. Now I'm the only one left who can still function in human terms. Even that might not be true for much longer. We weren't just exploring. That's what they told us, sure. Scientific expedition. Unprecedented opportunity. But the moment we hit 18,000 feet and our pressure sensors flatlined, we all knew we were in over our heads. Quite literally. We had entered a zone that didn't obey the laws of nature as we understood them. And some things, were already waiting for us down there. Watching, whispering through the water, inviting us deeper. I'm writing this from a secure medical facility in Montana. They don't let me near electronics unless someone's watching. But one of the orderlies is a good guy. He thinks I'm harmless. He doesn't know I've swallowed a data crystal with the mission logs. He doesn't know that every time I close my eyes, I see the same thing. The pillar, the symbols, the door. It's open now. It started with the mission briefing, 3 weeks before descent. We were flown out to a private research vessel moored in international waters. My companions were professionals, grizzled, competent, confident. There was Ramirez, our senior pilot, a veteran of 23 deep dives. Meyer, our co-pilot and navigational systems lead. Dr. Caroline Wexler, the lead marine biologist. Jules Brandt, a hydrologist with a background in deep ocean currents and geothermal mapping. And Alexei Sorin, a quiet Russian technician who was in charge of sensor calibration and hull integrity monitoring. That made 6. There was also a 7th member. We called him the Observer. No name, no designation. He didn't eat with us, didn't speak unless asked a direct question. He carried a black leather notebook at all times. His face was forgettable. That's the only way I can describe it. You ever see someone and 5 minutes later, you can't recall their features? That was him. And he always seemed to be watching just behind you, no matter where you were in the room. Before we launched, they ran us through training simulations. The Vector wasn't just a sub. It was a mobile lab with AI-assisted systems, a pressure-resistant hull built from classified composites, and a nuclear power source. It was built to go deeper than any other vessel on the planet. And our destination? The Atlantis Trench. They showed us sonar scans, something like a gash torn into the sea floor, perfectly vertical, over 8 miles deep. The internal walls were smooth in places, jagged in others. There were anomalies they couldn't explain, reflective surfaces, pulsing temperature shifts, and sonar dead zones. One scan showed something like a hexagonal structure near the bottom. They gave us the official line. We're mapping unexplored geology for potential mineral deposits. But I overheard a conversation I wasn't meant to hear, between the Observer and one of the military types who came aboard during a fuel drop. I was passing the observation room when I caught it. It moved again, the Observer said. Another 40 meters deeper, and the pulses are increasing in frequency. Can containment hold? The officer asked. Not if they get inside. I stood there, frozen, until I heard the observer's voice say, "Mr. Keller, you can come in now." I didn't tell the others. I didn't want to start a panic. And truthfully, I thought maybe I'd misheard or misunderstood. Launch day came. The ocean was glass smooth. We loaded into the Vector and initiated descent at 0430 hours. The descent was uneventful for the first 12,000 feet. We passed through known pressure zones, saw bioluminescent creatures drifting by, noted the occasional thermal vent. Jules kept mumbling about the water density, said it wasn't matching expected values, too low, too cold. At 15,000 feet, the temperature sensors failed. Not spiked, failed. They read 0 Kelvin, which is physically impossible. Absolute zero, the kind of temperature that only exists in theory. That should have told us to stop, turn around. But the observer stood silently in the rear of the sub, notebook open, writing in a language I didn't recognize. I caught a glance. The letters weren't Latin. They weren't Cyrillic or Greek. They weren't human. I swear to you, they moved on the page. At 18,000 feet, the pressure readings flatlined. All of them. Our depth sensors showed us descending further, but the external pressure gauges remained at 0. Meyer recalibrated them. Still 0? Alexei ran diagnostics. No malfunctions, no software faults. The Vector wasn't detecting any water pressure on the hull. "I'm telling you," Jules said, looking pale. "We've passed into something else. This isn't ocean anymore." Then we lost contact with the surface. No signal, no pingbacks, no emergency uplink, just static. Wexler swore and tried the secondary comms. Still nothing. The observer didn't react. It was Meyer who first noticed the sonar returns. "Guys," he said, "look at this." The screen showed our sub. Around us, the ocean. But every 30 seconds, something appeared on the periphery. A brief flash, like a school of fish. But too uniform, too synchronized. They moved in triangular formations. "Turn off active sonar," Ramirez said. "We're attracting something." We shut it down, but the clicking didn't stop. That's right, the clicking. It started soft, like a crab's pincers tapping glass, but it grew louder, more complex. Patterns, language. Wexler began recording it. "It's not echo," she whispered. "They're talking." Ramirez wanted to ascend, said we'd gone far enough. The observer, for the first time, spoke up. "We're close. You must continue." I looked back at him, startled. His voice was like sandpaper dragged across wet stone. Deep, slow, deliberate. Not how a human talks. I opened my mouth to object, but the pressure alarms suddenly spiked. Not to a high value, to infinity. "Error code. Nan press at hull." "Non-numeric value in pressure readout?" I said aloud. "That's not possible." "Unless we're not reading pressure," Alexei muttered. "We're reading vacuum." We dropped to 29,000 feet. Then the water around us lit up. Soft green, not from lights, from bioluminescence. Thousands of long, filament-like organisms swirled around us, blinking in pulses that looked like Morse code. Except it wasn't Morse. It was a countdown. Jules translated it. 60, 59, 58. I tried to shut the lights. Power cycled instead. 45, 44. The observer stepped forward. "Do not interrupt." 32, 31. We dropped past 32,000 feet. And then, at 33,000 feet, we saw it. A structure. Impossible to describe. like obsidian and coral fused together. A massive black pillar rising from the ocean floor, surrounded by concentric rings of geometrically impossible stone. The pillar pulsed with light from within, like a heartbeat. Wexler gasped. "That's not natural. That's—" She didn't finish. Her mouth hung open. Blood ran from her nose. Her eyes rolled back. We rushed to her. Ramirez checked her vitals. Flatline, but no sign of trauma. Then Meyer screamed. He pointed out the viewport. Wexler was outside, floating, facing us, perfectly preserved, eyes open, smiling. But we still had her body inside the sub. We turned back. The body was gone. Her harness hung loose, her clothes remained. But her body was missing. I unbuckled, started backing away. The observer put a hand on my shoulder. "We've arrived." The sub stopped descending. No command given. It just stopped. Outside, the pillar began to open, like a flower blooming. Segments of the stone rotated, revealing an interior chamber glowing with a light that hurt to look at. Meyer began screaming and clawing at his eyes. "It's in my head! It's in my head!" Ramirez grabbed a medkit. Alexei turned pale and whispered something in Russian. I only caught part of it. Not a door, a mouth. The light grew stronger. And then something stepped out of the pillar. It was tall, skeletal, humanoid in the loosest sense. Its skin, or exoskeleton, was translucent. Veins of liquid starlight pulsed inside it. Its head was featureless, save for a single vertical slit that ran from crown to chin. The clicking returned. Only now it wasn't ambient. It was coming from the observer. He replied in kind. And the creature nodded. The rest of us? We blacked out. All of us. I woke up in the Vector, drifting on the surface of the ocean. No one else was aboard. Just me. The sub was dry, pristine, not a drop of salt water. And the log files? Erased. All but one entry. Door opened. Exchange successful. Begin phase 2. I don't know what that means. But since then, I haven't slept more than a few hours. I wake up with nosebleeds. My dreams are filled with clicking and pulsing green light. I see flashes of the pillar, the creature, the observer standing in the center, smiling. And sometimes, when I look in the mirror, my reflection blinks out of sync with me. They said this was a scientific mission. They lied. The ocean wasn't hiding the pillar. It was protecting us from it. We opened the door. Now something's coming through. The first thing I did after waking up on the surface was scream, not a yell, not a cry. An animalistic, guttural roar that tore my throat raw. I was alone in a sealed submersible that had somehow risen 33,000 feet without breaching. Alone, yet surrounded by the absence of everyone who had descended with me. Meyer, Ramirez, Wexler, Jules, Alexei. Gone. The seat harnesses were all undone. No blood, no signs of struggle, nothing. Just me, the silence, and the vague, nauseating sensation that something was now inside my thoughts. A pressure. A hum. The moment I accessed the onboard diagnostics, I saw anomalies. First, the sub's power core had been drained and refilled. 3 times. There was no mechanical explanation for this. A full power cycle like that would have shut off life support. And yet, I hadn't suffocated. Second, the internal clocks no longer matched mission time. They showed a total descent time of 18 minutes, which was impossible. We had been descending for over 3 hours before the sensors failed. Third, the emergency logs had been scrubbed. All backup channels were wiped clean. Every radio transmission deleted. Only one audio file remained, buried deep in the encrypted cache. Timestamp unknown. File, observer_mouth, _of_depths, odd. I played it. It was the clicking. But under it, a voice, low, multi-layered, like chords struck in reverse. It spoke a single phrase in English. The vessel is suitable. Then silence. I didn't play it again. When the vector was finally recovered, the Navy took possession. I was transferred to a facility in Diego Garcia for debrief. They called it protective quarantine, but I knew better. They ran tests, blood work, MRIs, psych evaluations. My brain scans showed minor anomalies. Activity in parts of the temporal lobe not typically active in conscious states. A strange flickering in the pineal region. They thought it was equipment malfunction, until 3 different machines confirmed it. They never told me what it meant. But I noticed changes. I started dreaming in patterns, geometric structures I couldn't explain, tesseracts, spirals within spirals, things that bent space. I heard whispers in the water pipes when I showered. Cold spots in my room would form puddles, salt water, not fresh. And I knew I was being watched. Not by the guards, not by the doctors. By the observer. He was there in the shadows, at the edge of my vision. Sometimes I'd catch a reflection, never head-on, always in windows or glossy surfaces, smiling with a face I could never recall. After 3 weeks of silence, they brought me into a room with a long table. At one end sat a woman in a black suit with a Department of Defense insignia. At the other, him, the observer. "Mr. Keller," the woman said, "you are the only recovered survivor of the Atlantis descent. Congratulations." "Where are the others?" I asked. She didn't answer. Instead, she tapped a folder in front of her. "We've analyzed the remaining data. You witnessed the emergence of a previously undocumented life form, and what we believe to be a non-terrestrial artifact." I blinked. "You're admitting it?" "To you?" "Yes," she said, "but only because it's too late to suppress the entire thing." "Too late?" "There were signals, Mr. Keller. Broadcasts sent from the base of the trench after your reemergence. We don't know who received them, but someone, or something, responded. And now..." She looked at the observer. He closed his notebook. "The door is open." That's when the blackout started. I'd lose time, hours at first, then days. I woke up in different locations. Once in a dry bathtub, once on a hospital roof, once in the morgue, lying on a steel slab, fully dressed, but with a tag on my toe. Each time I woke, I had scrawled symbols on my arms in what looked like ink, but wouldn't wash off. Not ink. Blood. My own, but altered. They ran tests again. My hemoglobin was mutating. New proteins, uncatalogued markers. My cells were reorganizing. That's when they transferred me here, to the secure facility in Montana. They told me it was for my safety. But really, it's for containment. They don't know what I am anymore. And neither do I. Because 2 nights ago, I heard Ramirez's voice. Through the wall vent. He was whispering my name. I pressed my ear to the grate. He said, "We're not dead, Danny. We're through." I asked what that meant. He laughed, a dry, choking sound. "You'll understand when you shed your skin." The next day, a nurse found me unconscious. No pulse. They pronounced me dead. Bagged me. 4 hours later, I woke up. In the bag. No heartbeat. Still don't have one. But I'm walking, talking, typing this now. The observer came to visit last night. The first time since the trench. He stood by my bedside and whispered, "You are almost ready. The others wait below." And then he placed something on my chest. A key. Not a traditional key. No grooves, no teeth. It looked like black coral shaped into a Mobius strip. Cool to the touch. When I held it, I heard breathing, like I'd pressed a seashell to my ear, but deeper, older. When I looked up, he was gone. No one else saw him. But I know what it means. They want me to return. To go back down. To the pillar. To the place that isn't under the ocean, but beneath the world itself. I don't know how I'm going to get out of here yet. But I will. The urges are getting stronger. Every night I see them in my dreams. Meyer and Ramirez and Wexler, standing on the seafloor, surrounded by black stone. Their eyes are silver. Their skin glows faint green. They beckon. And I want to go. God help me, I want to go. The first person I killed was the orderly. His name was Travis. He was young, maybe 23, and always brought me coffee even though I wasn't allowed it. Said he liked my stories. Said he wanted to be a marine biologist once. I don't remember doing it. One moment, I was asleep. The next, I was standing over his body in the medical storage room, holding a scalpel. His throat had been opened cleanly, edge to edge, like gill slits. Blood pooled beneath him in a perfect oval. I didn't panic. That was the worst part. Something inside me just clicked, like a dial turning. This part of me, this thing, knew exactly what it was doing. It dragged Travis's body into a corner, covered it with gauze sheets, then moved silently back to my room. I blacked out again right after that. They found him 4 hours later. Security was scrambled. The ward went into lockdown. No visitors. Full psych evaluations for every patient. Guards with rifles posted at the doors. They questioned me twice. I passed both lie detector tests. The observer was the one who cleared me. He walked in during the second interview, handed the agents a thick dossier, and said 5 words. "He's under non-civilian jurisdiction." They didn't even argue. The next day, I was transferred again. This time, to a black site in Alaska. Cold, remote, buried deep beneath the permafrost. No name, no signage. Just a 14-digit GPS coordinate on a military manifest. They injected me with something during the flight. When I woke up, I was in a cylindrical chamber with steel walls and no visible door. A voice, synthetic, emotionless, spoke from an unseen speaker. "You are in containment. All personnel clear level 4 immediately." A moment later, Ramirez vanished. Not by walking, not by moving. He folded, bent inwards like origami, and disappeared into the floor. I screamed until I passed out. The observer visited me again the next day. He didn't speak for a long time, just stared, like he was listening to something only he could hear. Finally, he said, "You were the first to bring it back. A carrier. Your mind adjusted. That's rare." I asked him what it was. He smiled. The future. The thing at the end of the spiral. The true ocean beneath the sea. He told me I had to go back, that the artifact, the black pillar, had opened something. A corridor, a gateway. But it was incomplete, broken. It needed to be finished. I was the key. Or rather, what I had become was. They didn't let me walk out. Of course not. They sedated me again. This time, I woke in restraints aboard a submersible that made the Vector look like a bath toy. It was called Kronos. Sleek, black, unmarked. Crewed by people who didn't speak English or any human language I could recognize. They never blinked, never breathed. We descended in silence, no fanfare, no radio chatter, just a slow plunge into darkness, deeper than I'd ever been. This time, there was no trench. We passed through it, yes, but kept going, past the floor, past the rock layers, down into the underworld. I don't know how else to describe it. There were structures, not man-made, not even alien in the way we understand the word. They looked like bone, like the fossils of impossible creatures turned into cities, curved spires the size of mountains, floating spheres that pulsed with internal light, caverns lined with membranes that breathed. And everywhere, the clicking. But now, it formed patterns, rhythms. I realized, with horror, it was speech. The observer sat across from me in the capsule. "Do you understand now?" he asked. "No," I whispered. "You will." We stopped at what looked like a canyon of black stone. The sides were covered in markings that shimmered like oil on water. A wide crevasse opened below us, and the sub dove in. I felt it before I saw it. A pressure, like my skull was being crushed from the inside. And then, there it was, the source, the black pillar. It had grown. No longer a simple spire, it now resembled a massive throne, carved with spirals and eyes and mouthless faces. It breathed. I saw the walls of it flex in and out, like lungs. And I heard it. Inside my mind. A voice like grinding tectonic plates. "We see you." The observer took my hand and guided me from the sub. No suit, no pressure resistance. Somehow, I was able to walk. I stepped onto a pathway made of what looked like vertebrae. Long, looping spines that twisted downward into the mouth of the throne. The others were waiting. Ramirez, Meyer, Wexler, Jules. All changed. All glowing faint green. Their eyes now like mine, black, lidless, shimmering with that same unfathomable awareness. Wexler approached and touched my chest. "Welcome back," she whispered. "The chrysalis is complete." I looked down. My body was cracking, splitting. Skin sloughing off in flakes, bone dissolving. But I felt no pain. Only release. Inside, something new was emerging. Slender, pale, translucent. Limbs that coiled like vines. A head crowned with ridges like coral. The observer stepped back, his eyes reflecting the throne's light. "You were never meant to be human forever, Daniel. The sea remembers." The last thing I saw before I lost consciousness was the inside of the throne opening. An abyss with no bottom, lined with stars. They dropped me in, and I fell. Through space, through memory, through time. I didn't hit the bottom. There was no bottom. I fell for what could have been seconds or centuries. That time didn't matter there. It came apart like threads of kelp pulled loose by the tide. Light and darkness bled together. The walls of the abyss melted into rivers of memory. I saw myself as a child, staring into tide pools. I saw Meyer's face before she died, before she changed. I saw the throne growing from a crack in the world, long before mankind scraped fire from stone. And I heard the voice again, no longer distant. It was inside me now. "You are returned." When I finally stopped falling, I was standing on a plain of still, black water. No horizon, no sky, just the reflection of stars above, identical to the ones below. I was naked. My skin was no longer skin. It was semi-translucent, pulsing faintly with blue light. My fingers had become longer, jointed differently, webbed. My breath came not through lungs, but something else. Gills that opened along my ribs, drawing in the heavy air like seawater. And in front of me stood them. Not Ramirez, Meyer, or the others. The first ones. Tall, towering, at least 20 feet high. Their bodies were fluid and elegant, like jellyfish given bones. Eyes that blinked sideways. Mouths that didn't move, yet still sang. Their language wasn't words. It was harmonics. Emotion, shape, and concept, all woven into vibrating light. One of them stepped forward. Its hand reached toward me, not with threat, but with reverence. You have opened the descent spiral. The eye is watching through you. I should have screamed, should have wept or begged or fought. But I knelt, because something in me remembered them, welcomed them. They taught me without speaking. Images poured into my head. Civilizations long dead, swallowed by oceans. Not drowned, but claimed. The Atlanteans, the Lemurians, others with names older than history. All had found the pillar. All had tried to use it. All had failed. Except one. The Gatal. Not a species, a purpose, a transformation. Beings who had shed their flesh to serve the will of the deep. I was now becoming one of them. The Black Throne, they told me, was a seed, not a machine, not a structure. It was a conscious being, dormant for eons, buried beneath the crust of Earth, not of Earth, but planted here when the stars were still raw, waiting. We had awakened it. The descent had been a summoning. And now the seed was germinating. Its roots were spreading, not just beneath the sea, but through the minds of all who heard its call. And it wanted more. I don't know how long I spent in that place. Days, years? The passage of time was irrelevant. I learned to walk the spiral, to enter the dreams of surface dwellers, to whisper through vents and drains and phone static. I was no longer a person. I was a harbinger. Eventually, they sent me back. I awoke on a beach in southern Chile, naked, with no memory of how I got there. A fishing boat spotted me staggering along the rocks. They called the authorities. I was detained, interrogated, branded a vagrant. But soon enough, the observer came for me. He was always watching, always waiting. "You're stable," he said. "We weren't sure you'd return home." I asked how long I'd been gone. He didn't answer. But I saw a headline on a TV screen behind him. Pacific Dead Zone expands. Third oxygen collapse in 2 months. The oceans were changing. I could feel it in my bones. In my blood. In the hum that now accompanied every heartbeat. He took me to a bunker. This one deep in Nevada. Desert camouflage, far from the sea. But it didn't matter. The sea was everywhere now. The observers showed me footage. Satellite captures of strange black formations rising from the deepest trenches. Whale carcasses found with holes bored through their skulls, tongues removed, spines unwound like thread. Fishing vessels disappearing. Tsunamis without earthquakes. Then, mass dreams. Entire cities reporting identical nightmares. Dark spirals, drowning cities. Voices rising from sinks and showers and sewers. People started drawing the same symbols I'd seen in the pillar, unconsciously, on walls, on their skin, on their children. It was spreading. The seed is maturing, the observer said. And what happens when it blooms? I asked. He didn't answer, but I saw it in his eyes. Fear. The first time I'd ever seen it on him. He wasn't in control anymore. None of them were. 2 days later, I fled. I didn't know why. Only that I had to go. Some pulled deep in my chest, a gravity that had nothing to do with the planet. I made it as far as Utah before I blacked out again. Woke in a motel bathtub. Water filled to the rim. Scrawled across the mirror in blood. You are the vessel. And I knew what that meant. I was pregnant. Not in the human sense. Not with a child. But with something else. A thought, a design, sliver of the throne's mind, gestating inside me. It spoke sometimes. In the shower. In the silence between phone rings. In the blink of street lights. You are the mouthpiece, it would say. You are the crack in the surface. I've stopped fighting it. There's no point. They're everywhere now. I see them in crowds, smiling with too many teeth. I hear their clicking behind closed doors. I feel them swimming in the reservoirs, the aquifers, the plumbing. Humanity is no longer alone. The sea has remembered us. And it's coming home. I've moved inland, as far as I can go. A cabin near the Rockies, dry, high altitude, no lakes for miles. Even the groundwater here is shallow. But it's not enough. I hear them at night. Not just in dreams now. In the wood, in the pipes, in the static when I flip on the old shortwave radio I brought from the Vector. A voice comes through sometimes. Barely above a whisper. You brought it with you. I think it's Ramirez, or what's left of him. He sounds different, hollow, like something's echoing through him. The observer visited once. I woke to find him sitting in my living room, sipping tea like he'd always been there. He looked older, tired. The corners of his mouth twitched like he was struggling to smile. I warned them, he said. Told them to shut the doors before it fully emerged, but they thought they could reason with it, contain it. He set a thick folder on my table. Inside, photos, transcripts, sonar maps. A report titled, Subsurface Horizontal Venting Events Continental Shelf Instability. The coasts were crumbling. Not from erosion, from hollowing. Something beneath the seabeds had started drilling up. These aren't sinkholes, the observer said. They're mouths. He offered me a choice. Go back under. Back to the throne. Become one of them fully. Shed what little was left of me and ascend. Or stay here. Watch the end play out like a dying candle, flickering in the wind. I told him to leave. And for once, he listened. He left the folder behind, though. Page 17 contained a satellite image taken 3 days earlier. It showed the Gulf of Mexico, black with bloom. Not algae. Eyes. Thousands of them, floating on the surface like oil bubbles, watching the sky. They weren't killing it. Not really. They were waiting. Because something was coming. I've seen it in my dreams. A shape that blots out the sun. Not a ship, not a god. A parent. The thing that laid the throne. It's still out there, coiled in the void between stars, drifting like a spore. But it's awake now. Because we signaled it. We opened the corridor. And the final step is landing. Once it's here, there won't be oceans or land. Just one great sea. unified, breathing, alive. I can feel it in my blood. My skin is changing again, translucent like before, gills returning, teeth sharpening at the back of my throat. I don't eat anymore, just absorb. My dreams are no longer mine. I speak in tongues while I sleep, clicks and whistles and deep subharmonic bellows that rattle the windows. I wake with water in my lungs. Sometimes I don't wake at all. Sometimes I dream so deep I forget which world is real. And I see them walking on dry land. The Catal, the others who changed before us, the ones who finished their spiral. They walk in suits of salt and coral, harvesting the last remnants of humanity, not violently, lovingly, like shepherds gathering lost sheep. And the people, they want it. They throw themselves into the surf, tear off their clothes, open their mouths, and let the sea in. It's beautiful, and it's awful. I've recorded what I can. Every log, every dream, every whisper from the black. Not because I think it can be stopped, but because someone needs to remember. There won't be books after this. No stories passed down. No children asking what it was like before the world turned wet. Only the sea, the spiral. The memory of dry skin and lungs like paper. Tonight, the air smells of salt. Here, 1,000 miles from the nearest beach. The trees are weeping sap that smells like brine. The birds have stopped singing, and my reflection in the window no longer blinks. The throne is rising. Not from the trench, but from beneath us all. It was never just in the ocean. It was always here. Waiting, listening, growing like mold in the corners of consciousness. And now the eye is opening. Not one. All of them. I write this for no one. Or maybe for whoever finds the world after. If after still means anything. Remember this. We were warned. We were told. The ocean never belonged to us. We were trespassers. And the sea, it remembers everything.